All right, everybody. Welcome to another episode of Simply Finance with Shane White. I'm pumped today to have one of the founders of Agua Bonita, Kayla Casteñeda, on the podcast. Kayla, welcome to the show.
Hi, Shane. Thanks for having me. I'm super excited to chat and really excited to get into all things Agua Bonita.
I'm very excited for this one. So as you probably saw when we started, I drink LaCroix or like whatever. This is like Kirkland's, whatever, Costco's cheaper version. But big fan. When I started working at RX bar, I had never had a LaCroix before or any like sparkling water. And it was like in the fridge everywhere. So I became quickly addicted to sparkling water. But would you mind giving everyone a little bit of a background on what your product is? And I think, as the sparkling water trend has taken off, I thought your guys' brand and the product was really unique.
Yeah, so a couple things that make Agua Bonita different from a lot of the sparkling waters out there is that we're not sparkling water.
Right.
We are non-carbonated aguas frescas. So aguas frescas are a traditional Mexican drink. They're traditionally made with fresh fruit, non-sparkling water, and a ton of sugar. What's special about Agua Bonita is that we don't use any added sugar. So we really just rely on the fruit for the natural sweetness. And sometimes we use spices to get like those really culturally aligned flavors. So one of our SKUs is watermelon chile, which is like watermelon sprinkled with tahine. And then another one on the other end of the spectrum is pineapple cucumber. So very light, refreshing, but more robust and more of a juice content than lots of like sparkling water drinkers are used to. Because yeah, we sit at about like minimum 20 to 30% juice content, whereas like something like a spindrift is like 3 to 5%.
Right.
So way more robust, like in your face. These are our flavors, and yeah, that's the beauty of what an agua fresca is.
That's awesome. And what would you say is like and maybe it's all the time, what is like the normal use case for your type of product? Like I always feel like a LaCroix, like I just probably, I always feel like lunch and in the afternoon I have a bunch. Is there like a similar type of use case for that type of beverage?
Yeah, so like traditionally, just like growing up, we had them in the house all the time. So pretty much like just anytime, whenever. Um, Sorry, one second.
No, you're good. You're good. Kayla has some little ones, so everyone give us just a quick second.
Sorry, guys, working from home.
All good. I told everyone that you have little ones, so everyone listening,
Yeah,
this is real
yeah,
life we're dealing with.
yeah. Well, use case scenario, and especially if you have little ones, half the time is mixing it with alcohol.
Yeah.
Um,
That's a good use. Yeah.
yeah, so we get a lot of people using it as a mixer, just like a healthy option. And I think it kind of just depends on the flavor profile that you gravitate towards too, because some of our lighter options, like the pineapple cucumber, people really love to use that like after a workout or when they just want something that is, a little bit more robust than water, but still healthy and still light and refreshing. So, yeah, so it's split a little 50-50 between like that social setting and like that fun, like, oh, I want this with alcohol, or everyone else around me is drinking, so I just want to carry something pretty and cool. And then on the other side, like, oh yeah, let's go to the beach or let's go on a hike, and like this is a really great option. So yeah, we kind of run the gamut between those two of use case.
Got it. Yeah. No, I love that. So what would you say was the like I always love to ask this question around what was the inspiration? Like where did the concept come from? You already kind of gave a little bit of a hint that you had this growing up, but obviously it's a big jump from having it like made at home when you're growing up to bringing a product to market. Could you tell everyone just like do you remember that like aha moment or the conversation or day when you realized you wanted to bring this product to actually bring it to market?
Yeah, I do actually. There's a couple of like pretty key inflection points to our origin story. But yeah, growing up, my grandpa would bring home like super ripe fruit from the fields after work, because he couldn't just stand to like let them go to waste, right? So
Yeah.
they would come into our home and they'd get made into aguas frescas, or they'd get, cut up and put tahine on them. And so we grew up always having them. And if there was a party, and there was like always a party, even more reason to have like a variety of aguas frescas. And yeah, some of them were spiked, or some of them were for the kids. It kind of just, we had options. But growing up, I really wanted that, feeling of like our culture and celebration, but not all of the added sugar. And my grandpa got a diabetes diagnosis when he was a little later on in life. So it changed the way that my family started thinking about sugar. And then as an adult, yeah, so still wanted that feeling. And then my boyfriend and his parents, who are from Mexico too, they always had them in the home. So we still have them in our fridge all the time. And I had worked for Coca-Cola for a while,
Oh, okay.
doing market development and handling their California region. And after a few years of doing that, I wanted to work in a capacity that was, a little bit more intimate, where I could put things into play and see them iterated on quicker. So I started consulting for beverage startups. And that is actually where I met my co-founder, Aaron. I took a consulting job the very week that the global pandemic was announced, which is like the worst
Ah,
time to
yikes.
ever onboard at a new job.
Yeah, I'm
Um,
sure.
yeah, so
And a
within
scary
months,
time to go start doing that.
yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. And I mean, it wasn't my first consulting job, but it was the one that I was like, oh, okay, this is really cool. And then, okay, the pandemic, it wasn't really the pandemic at that point. It was like, okay, there's a virus going around, just stay clean, stay inside for a little while. Yeah, but then within a few months, everything drastically changed. And that company pretty much ceased to operate. And me and my co-founder found a whole lot of time on our hands without having a job. And we went to the drawing board, and we really weren't ready to give up on, all of the things that we had built over the years. Like coming from Coca-Cola and consulting, I had tons of data points, tons of relationships with buyers, and yeah, all this experience. And the same thing with Aaron. But we took it as an opportunity to make something that was like really reflective of ourselves and would also index high with consumers. And so have I have the text messages of me texting her and being like, hey, so I've been thinking about aguas frescas like the whole drive. Like, what do you think about that? And being like, oh, that could really work. And then us sitting down and, going through like, okay, well, what would we want it to look like? What would we want the characteristics to be? And just really both of us getting very excited about the idea of it. And then Agua Bonita was born, and we actually just hit our 1 year birthday this past week.
Oh,
So
congratulations. Nice.
yeah, yeah. Thank you.
That's awesome. That's very cool. Was there like a point there when you two were kind of going back and forth? I mean, did you try to make your own? Did you like have a business plan first? Like what were some of like that very early stages of like how you guys went about just trying to make a decision whether this was worth pursuing or not?
Yeah, I mean, we definitely sat down with a pad of paper and a pen first and foremost, and was just kind of like listing out the pros and cons, and like things that we would want to avoid from like past experiences. So like our product is shelf stable because we knew that we did not want to deal with a cold supply chain. And we have no added sugar because that's something that's, really important to consumers, but also important to us. And we're in cans because it's eco-friendly, even though putting it in a plastic bottle would be much easier, but we're like personally against plastic. So, we went through a
Yeah.
lot of those different things to see like, okay, if does our ideal product have a chance at actually being created? And once we deduced like, okay, yes, it does, it was more like, okay, well, I have these recipes that we use in my home all the time. Like, can we tweak them and put them to the commercial scale test to make them into our actual product. And so, yeah, so it started like me and my boyfriend like peeling fruit in the kitchen and making benchtop samples, and then going to, a production facility nearby, asking them to like make iterations, then going to like a food scientist and asking them like, okay, what does this look like at a commercial scale? And then, yeah, like running a pilot, seeing if you can even pull it off without, spoilage and stuff like that. So yeah, a few different steps to get to where we're at. But I think we first and foremost just started like with the data.
Yeah, no, that's really cool. And I know from previous podcasts, the beverage space can be expensive, especially like to get up and running. Was that
Oh, it's
something you guys dealt with as well? Just like, I mean, even just purchasing the raw materials with cans and getting your product into that, I know can be an enormous capitally intensive start.
yes. I will tell anyone that's thinking about starting a beverage business, it costs money, a lot of money. Brace yourself because it does cost a lot of money. The minimum order quantities in this particular industry are very high just because of like the sheer amount of gallons that you need to produce to even have a chance of them filling up cans. So when we started as a concept, we had one angel investor that was willing to take a chance on us. So he gave us a very small investment, but it was enough to produce like a 10,000 unit pilot. And then we put in our personal savings. We didn't take a salary or anything like that. Everything that we sold, just reinvested it. I went on a crazy pitch tour. Like any opportunity to win free money, I was there, telling our story and making sure that like we could get in front of judges and either win money or get a contract of some sort. So we
Wow.
were able to get actually like hundreds of thousands of dollars in like grants and competitions and things like that. All of that is to say the entirety of that basically went to production and just like basic business costs that you need to like be a real business, so it's very capital intensive. So that is actually why we just finished we just closed a round of funding, our first official round of funding, because yeah, beverage is just a very capital intensive game to play, but it can be very, very worthwhile and very fulfilling. So don't let it scare you, but
Sure.
just be
Yeah.
brave. Yeah.
Well, my like initial question there, because I think this is such an interesting part of the beverage industry is, for you guys to go get angel money and to do a minimum order run. At that point, had you done much like testing of the product, like a minimal viable product type of concept, with people outside of like friends and
Um,
family? Like, or are you guys just so bullish on it that you felt like, getting a 10,000 unit run, then you could test from there and you thought it would work?
Yeah, I think that was really more of our approach. Like aguas frescas are the most popular drink across Latin America. And in the US, the category has gone up in popularity almost 200% over the last decade, but it's been purely in like fountain drink format. But you can look at places like Subway and Chipotle that have fountain drink aguas frescas. Coca-Cola has a fountain drink agua fresca.
Yeah.
So we knew that there is a market for it. And so we didn't feel like it was so outlandish, and the concept in and of itself is very approachable. It's just fruit and water and like sometimes spices. So we were willing to take that bet. And I feel like we kind of started with product market fit from the jump. We
Yeah.
didn't have too much of a trial and error period in that sense. The trial and error period was really like in the production capabilities, and that's where it gets really capital intensive. But we knew like if we can just use this money to test production, there's going to be an audience for our product.
Got it. Yeah. No, it totally makes sense. And then for you guys, where did you start? Like, did you start with a website? Did you guys have like when you got the product, where did you try to start selling it first?
Yeah, so we're millennials. We went on Instagram, made an Instagram, put up a website through like Squarespace, just like basic bare bones things. We went into this wanting to create something beautiful in every sense of the word, like beautiful in our mission, beautiful in the way that we give produce a new life, and beautiful in the way that we present our brand. So my co-founder Erin is just an absolute wizard, and she's the one that actually did our branding for our cans. So I
Oh,
mean, if
wow.
you have someone very artistically inclined, it can save you a lot of money instead of going to an agency. But yeah, the goal with our cans was to make something that people wanted to take a photo of, and make something that people wanted to hold in real life in their hands. And that paid off big time for us because we were able to just go straight to Instagram with just a Squarespace and Shopify page and start selling our product immediately. And, we produced our pilot thinking, okay, it's going to take us months to get through this allotment. It only took us weeks. And
Wow.
then
That's great.
we reinvested it and like went back into production to make more units, and we sold out even faster. And then we reinvested it again, and like won some competitions, went back in and made like an even bigger production. And before we even had that product on the production line, it was already 95% sold through. So, and this was, yeah, just like grassroots, us getting out there, getting on Instagram, talking to folks, pitch competitions, all that good stuff.
Wow. And so you said you launched a year ago. So at this point, are you guys primarily on D2C still?
Yeah, so now that we have some funding behind us, the goal is to use that to not only make sure that we never sell out again, but also to support retail expansion. So we've been about 90% direct to consumer, I'd say. The other 10% was like boutique retailers and like, yeah, like online wholesale to like spas and things like that.
Yeah,
Like,
yeah.
uh, yeah, and so like we had some really great early partners like Coco Andre out in Dallas, Max and Market down in San Diego. Folks really in the Latino space that are like working to uplift the culture via their own products. Welcomed us with open arms. But now that we have some more funding, we want to share that with even more people, and retail is the way to do that. Unfortunately, direct to consumer for beverages can be capital intensive too, because it doesn't matter what volume you ship. A can is always going to weigh the same amount,
Right,
and
right.
um, yeah, so like shipping doesn't ever really get that much cheaper the more that you send, because the weight never changes.
Yeah, yeah. Shipping is like such a challenge with beverage, it seems like.
Hmm.
Yeah, got it.
Yeah. Hmm.
So for you guys then, when you think about future distribution, is it mainly retail you think would be the next logical move once you guys build capacity?
Yeah, we're trying to invert the scales a little bit. We'll never shut down our direct to consumer pipeline. Like we've had such early success there, and accessibility is a big part of our brand. We want people to be able to get it wherever you're at. We want to meet you there. So we will never shut that down. But to really be like a viable business and get the growth that we need, retail has to be a bigger part of our approach than it is now.
Got it. And what would you say, like, to sitting here today, what is like your dream retail location to lock down, just in case they hear this?
Yeah, Target, I think, is a lot of people's dream retailer. Target would love to be able to just walk into my local store and grab us there. But we're fortunate. We have some really great retail partners already that we're starting to work through things with. So we're a part of Kroger's Zero Hunger, Zero Waste cohort. So you might see us on some shelves of Kroger's soon. Um, yeah, I mean, who knows?
Exciting.
I
That's
can't,
awesome.
I can't, yeah, get into all the details right now, but yeah, I would
Sure.
love to see
Yeah.
us in like Trader Joe's. That would be so cool.
Yeah, you guys seem like
Um,
you'd be a great Trader Joe's brand.
yeah, I
Yeah.
think we would too.
That's awesome. No, that's really cool. And it's interesting you were just talking about the Kroger cohort, and that's one thing we kind of skipped over is don't you guys use like what the fruit that goes into your beverages? Would you kind of explain to everyone that? Because I felt like when I was doing my research, that was a really cool component of what you guys stand for and believe in that I felt like differentiated what other brands I've seen in this space.
Yeah, so this really hails back to my grandpa. Like I said, he would bring home like super ripe fruit from the fields, and we would use it and make it into aguas frescas. And the yeah, the space that I met Aaron in was, in the upcycling space. So we both like connected over passion for diminishing food waste and like, helping our planet just thrive. So Agua Bonita rescues produce, as much produce as we can, when and where we can, to make our blends. So that means that stuff that is just like cosmetically inferior for the grocery store. Maybe it's like too big or too small or has a little mark on it, or is just produced in surplus because like 30% of food that's produced literally just goes straight to the landfill because they just made too much of it and a store can't take it.
Right.
So all of that kind of fruit, we try to get our hands on as much as possible and use it in our blends. So yeah, it's called upcycling is the term.
That's really cool. Yeah, that's awesome. I feel like that's an unknown thing. I have friends in the industry that do something similar, and I never knew much about it until I met them. And it's a big problem. Like we waste a ton of fruit that is totally fine to use. So that's really cool that you guys do that.
Yeah, no, it's a really labor of love to get a supply chain like that in order, but very worthwhile.
Sure. Oh yeah, I bet. Um, You had mentioned earlier about the you just finished a round of funding. Would love to just know. I always like to ask on here people's perspectives. Number one, before I even ask the question, I'm a big believer in there's not one right way or wrong way to do that, or have a perspective. But it's really the question around your perspective on trying to bootleg a business versus raising capital, and also knowing that the space you're
Mm.
in, it seems like it's obviously very capital intensive. Before you even started Agua Bonita, now that you've kind of been a year through it and you just finished a round, do you have a different perspective, or what is your overall perspective for people listening who, may want to start their own venture on raising capital or bootstrapping?
Yeah, I mean, I would say we bootstrapped as much as we could, and we pushed it to the extent that our wallets would allow, and that meant like foregoing our own salaries. Like we didn't take any money out of it. We put a lot of personal money into it, and like I said, we went and competed and tried to win as much money and free grants as possible. Um, that in and of itself is a full-time job. Just trying to find free money. But if you can bootstrap for as long as you can, it'll give you really great insight and just like money management skills, I would say, that you can carry on even as you get funding later. But with Beverage in particular, there will come a time, if you are making something at the scale that we are and with the properties that we are, that you will have to take outside funding. Um, there's just like no way around it unless you're making stuff that you can like, brew overnight at your house or like in a small production facility, and then it goes out for consumption for in the next 2 or 3 days, and then like you start all over. If that's your model, then you can make that work. But if you're gonna like want to ship things and like find consumers in other places and really get onto retail shelves, like you're gonna have to fundraise. My biggest advice there is like find angels that support your vision and can be really great value adds to your project. Um, and if you are going to take VC money, well, first, I mean, you're probably going to be too early for most VCs anyway. So, I mean, those are good conversations to start having, but like, just keep in mind, like, the chances of you getting VC money are on the lower side. But if you do have the opportunity to take like institutional money, make sure that it is a really great strategic partner that can help you grow. Because they're going to be around for a while and they're going to want input on like what you do and how you do it. And you need to make sure you like draw those lines in the sand on like where you're willing to bend or break.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. I mean, if I think about it from a finance lens, obviously I'm a finance guy, so I always think that way. It's like as you're scaling a beverage business, it seems like you would always get to a point, if you unlock the Target or the Trader Joe, the next distribution point, the capital needed, even if you're running a profitable business on your current distribution, it just seems like it'd be so hard to like produce enough to fulfill the next level of growth with just the profits from what you're selling. Like it's just so expensive per
Yeah.
can that it's almost
Yeah.
that's where my head goes. And I'm assuming that's probably somewhat how it works.
Yeah, and so two comments on that. We crafted Agua Bonita with our margins in mind. Like we knew the range that we wanted to get in because we knew like, okay, at the distributor level, we're gonna have to account for this layer, and at the retail level, we're gonna have to account for this percentage of a spend and whatnot. So we went into it knowing kind of like if our end goal is to be at this price on shelves, that means we cannot go past this price to make these cans. And I think that that's a very valuable practice for anyone going into just any CPG in general, but especially beverage, because um, that can be inhibitive to your growth at scale. Um, Sorry, one second.
No, that's great advice. For everyone listening. I mean, that's something like, I mean, I did like RGM at RX for a long time. So like that was something I always did. But early on, I rarely hear people talking that way, like thinking about it backwards from where you want to be on shelf. That's great. That's awesome.
Yeah, I would say definitely back into it. And then when you do start to fundraise and you start to think about like the retail opportunities at hand, I don't know if everyone knows this, but if you don't know, like beverage, a standard industry practice is a free fill.
Yeah.
So basically, you give a free case of your product, one case per flavor, to new retailers that want to carry you for each store. So that means that you need to be able to produce a lot of product that you have to give away for free if you want to get there.
Which also, like, a free fill doesn't sound, for everyone listening and doesn't know what a free fill is, a free fill doesn't sound like a very expensive thing, but it can be. I mean, you think about how much a case can cost somebody. It's a lot. It's a lot.
Yeah, it's a ton of money, and especially if you're like, okay, I want to get into 1,000 stores and I have 4 flavors. That means you need 4,000 cases to give away for free,
Right.
um, which is a lot, and you have to ship them to them. And you have to make sure that you have the money for like the in-store marketing and the slotting fees. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
really back into these costs when you're kind of constructing and setting your constraints for like how you can make your product.
Sure. Oh yeah. Yeah. Totally makes sense. Um, there's a lot to think about, especially if you're going into retail. Have you guys, I mean, I know you said you're 90% D2C. Have you guys thought about, and I'm sure the shipping part is tough, but have you guys thought about other e-commerce like Amazon's and the other.com is what I call them normally, of the world?
Yeah, so actually we just launched on Amazon. But I would say even especially for Amazon for beverages, it can still be a little bit tricky, but we just
Yeah.
launched on Amazon. So that allows us to, yeah, get to more places quicker. And then, yeah, we utilize some like wholesale sites like Fair. Yeah, and I mean, obviously our Shopify page is still there. So I would never shut down our direct to consumer online stuff. You know, it's a really great way to drive customer trial and get in front of people. But you have to go into it knowing that like this isn't going to be probably the biggest money maker unless you have like just a ton of money to spend on it. Like I know other brands, one brand in particular that does like a text to order service. I don't want to like name drop them or anything,
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
I know that they did a few years of just totally covering every shipping expense for everything. And that's how they were able to, get to so many customers. But that means like you have to have that money in the bank to do that first,
Sure.
so
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
yeah, so it's slippery slope, but it's worthwhile, and it lets you interact with customers in a totally different way than retail shelves does.
Yeah, yeah, I know. I'm very bullish on Amazon just because of my background. I feel like it's one of those. It's the platform that you can test the most. You can test prices. You can test packs. You can test a lot of things and learn a lot about your core consumer because of the scale and breadth of Amazon, and then you actually get data. So like you can do a lot there. No, that's exciting. Congratulations on launching on that. So now you guys are a year in. What is, for you guys, what does the next 1, 3, 5 kind of look like for Agua Bonita?
I mean, a lot of exciting things, I think. The next year is really centered around growth. So a lot of retail things. Sorry, one.
Oh, it's all good. It's all
Sorry,
good. This is life happening here behind you.
sorry, guys. If anyone works from home,
Kayla's got a full family here. So, oh, you're totally good. You're good. You're good. Give us just 1 second, folks.
sorry, this is
All good.
Riley.
No, we're back. We're back. Hi, buddy.
So for the next year, it looks like growth for us. So
Okay.
getting a team in place. Okay, baby.
Yeah, because it's just you two, right? So you guys have done a lot already with just a small team.
I'm sorry. Yeah,
That's
well,
okay.
unless
We
you
have 3
have
people on the
guys.
podcast today. This is
Yeah,
cool.
I was gonna say, Aaron and I both have little ones, and so unless you count them, then
There you go. They're probably part of the team at this point.
yeah, I was gonna say they're really like not worth their weight in health though. But yeah, so the next year is really just centered around growth.
Yeah, that makes sense. A lot of growth. Are you guys I know you have 2 flavors on your
I'm
D2C.
sorry.
Oh, you're fine. You're fine. I know you have 2 flavors on your D2C site. Are you guys planning on any expansion there? You guys just want to double down and focus on these first 2 flavors you have?
Yeah, so we actually have a couple new flavors coming out. There's a mango habanero that will come out pretty
Oh,
soon,
sounds
and
good.
then a strawberry one. And then hopefully over the winter, we're looking to set out a seasonal flavor. So I'll hold on to that information, but it's been something that people have been asking for a long time. Yeah, and we're right in the middle of onboarding. He's just trying to give all my credit
I was
card
gonna say
information
you're
out.
for everyone who's not
um,
watching, Kayla's kids just trying to just show all the credit cards on here on the Zoom. This is funny.
yeah, if you want the Agua Bonita account, just tune in.
Yeah.
And you guys, you just got it trending. So if you want a nice new couch or something,
I was gonna
this
say
is the
this
show
is, yeah, good timing. He knows.
Yeah, and then just bringing people on to better facilitate those things. So
Yeah,
operations and logistics is a big job because of the way that we source. So we need more people to help us with those kinds of things. And then yeah, rolling out into retailers also requires like a more dedicated team to be able to go to those stores and do all of those fun things. So yeah, that's really where we're at in the next like 1 to 3 years is just centered around like expanding our core lineup with different flavors, making sure that the retailers that we have relationships with are well equipped, and that way we can support them because it does take a lot of money to launch, and not only to sell one can but to keep people coming back to those stores to buy multiple cans afterwards. And then yeah, and I mean honestly the big picture is that we kind of become, well, no, not kind of. We do become category captains. This is really like a new category that we're trying to carve out in the ready to drink space. So we are happy to see other people joining in and like making ethnic beverages and kind of adding to the set. But we would love to be the like overarching Hispanic brand that iterates on better for you products, because there's a lot of like storied brands like Humex, is like the largest like Latin American distributor of beverages and stuff like that, but they've been using the same approach for decades. And so we would
sure.
love to be able to yeah, kind of get that global scale in the better for you space that we exist in.
Love that. That's really cool. That's really cool. Yeah, I think there's I know I have never tried a true beverage like this before. Like I said, I'm big on LaCroix. I can see how this could be a whole new spin on like the whole ready to drink category. I mean, just the way I'm talking to you and hearing this, I could see how this could be a great addition to a lot of the things that people are enjoying, and a nice change up from a sparkling drink that I think a lot of people are probably pretty cognizant of and use a lot. So I think that's really cool. After this is thinking way ahead, but I do like to ask this, even though you're early on, is you're in the weeds, you're building a business, but after Agua Bonita, what would you like everyone to remember you for?
Um, I love to be remembered as someone who created something that was a beautiful reflection of their culture. Yeah.
Very cool. That's a great answer. No, that's great. I just have a couple last questions that I love to ask all founders, because I think it's interesting, like, thinking inside the way you guys work, especially since, as you can see, you have a lot going on. So it's cool to
Yeah.
see how you build a business, right? Because I think everyone's at a different stage, and there's never a right stage to start a business, I would assume. And so everyone listening, everyone's in a different spot. So for you, knowing that you have business goals, and I'm sure you have life and family goals, what are some of the tools that you use to track all of that? And then how do you plan your days? Like, what do you use to just get daily things done? Whether it's, some people it's a pen and paper, some people it's apps. What do you as Kayla use to just get stuff done? And it's okay. he he he
Well,
seems to
I need
he
to
seems
use
to
a
enjoy. Yeah, he seems to
nanny.
enjoy sitting with you more.
Yeah, I need to use a nanny, I think. But honestly, I just like live and die by my calendar, whether that's a written one or like a virtual one. The
Sure.
calendar is everything.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm the same way. I started doing time blocking not too long ago. That really helps me just kind of see when I have time, fitting time in.
Yeah, I need to get better at like that work-life balance, but working from home, everything kind of bleeds together. Obviously, as you can
Yeah.
see, like some days are like this where, it's like, yeah, a little bit harder to manage, the workflow and the needs of like the little ones and stuff like that. And I think that it's just like a very unique time that we're living in. I hope lots of people can empathize and relate to that, it's a lot different being able to go to the office and have that separation and, have all of this space that you exist in a professional capacity at an office and then come home and it be different. But I mean, the lifestyle of an entrepreneur is that line is very blurred. And with the pandemic, even more so, it's
Yeah.
just like, yeah, sometimes it means taking a phone call and your kid having a meltdown in the back,
Totally
And
understand.
yeah, or like, I was working on a really big proposal this morning and it's like, okay, but I have to stop to change a diaper and stuff like that. And yeah, so I think everyone kind of just has to find like what works best for them. So like for me, yeah, it's like double calendars, like write it down on a physical like pad, but then also put it in your virtual calendar. And then yeah, just trying to like lean into other people, like delegation is kind of a really strong skill that you have to have if you want your company to work well, is like figuring out like what is my personal bandwidth, what can I actually accomplish, and then who can accomplish this better than I can, and like hand that over to them. So yeah, I think those are just kind of some of the things that we're always navigating as we start to grow. And yeah, we're still working on it.
No, that's great. That's awesome. And I agree. Writing things down can sometimes be the differentiator that you need. The next question is around, like, I always say source of knowledge, but I lead with book. For everyone listening, do you have a book, a podcast, any source of knowledge that you would like to recommend to everyone listening?
Yeah, a book that I really loved is Capital Gains by Chip Gaines, which is like, I don't know, everyone thinks it's so random every time they say this, but Chip and Joanna Gaines have been able to build like such a crazy empire,
Yeah.
and they are very likable and authentic. And reading that book actually detailed a lot of like the sort of failures that they had before they got to where they're at now. And I think that that's important to hear sometimes as an entrepreneur, is like sometimes things just don't work out. But that doesn't mean that your like journey is over. And he spoke a lot about the way that he like treats his workers, how he's always treated his workers. Like he went down to Mexico to learn Spanish because a lot of his workforce was primarily Spanish speaking. And I think like as someone that's building a business, it's important to realize those limitations and work on yourself to be a better leader and meet people where they're at. So I would definitely highly recommend Capital Gains by Chip Gaines. And
Uh,
it's funny too. So
yeah, I was gonna say, no, me and my wife, we've watched, they have a show, I think, on Netflix, right? It's like I've watched.
Yeah, or they just launched their own network. I think it's called the Magnolia Network.
Oh, that's
But
it.
yeah, they're
That's it.
like
Okay.
fixer upper and everything. So
Yeah, no, those they're great. Okay, that's a great book. I'll add that to the show notes. That's awesome. The last question and the most important is how can the listeners follow along with your journey and how can they get involved with Agua Bonita and try the product?
yeah, well, if you stuck with this conversation this long, thank you. And the way to stay in touch with us after this is follow us on Instagram. So at Drink Agua Bonita is our business handle. You can find me at So Fresca, So Clean. Like a true 90s
On
baby.
brand. Love it.
And yeah, and our website, www.drinkaguabonita.com. That's AGUABONITA. Yeah, and follow along there. We're always doing giveaways. We're always announcing like new cool flavors and things like that, all on our Instagram. So we're really responsive, and we would love to chat with you guys there.
Awesome. Well, very good. Well, thank you for taking the time to come on. I know you're at a hectic point in your business and life and everything, and I appreciate you taking the time to come on. I think this was a lot of fun.
Thanks, Shane. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. And good luck. Have a great weekend. Thank you.
Thanks, you too.
All right.